She stood at the back of the ballroom in a borrowed coat, watching the man who destroyed her smile for cameras. He was draped in success, designer suit, diamond cufflinks, a woman on his arm who looked like money. He didn't see her. Not yet. But when he did, he laughed. Loud enough for everyone to hear. He mocked her, called her a ghost from his past, a mistake he'd outgrown. The room fell silent. And that's when she spoke. 6 words. Just 6 words about the twins he never knew existed. His smile died. The cameras turned. And the empire he built on lies began to crumble in real time. Sometimes the truth doesn't whisper. Sometimes it walks into the room and takes everything from you. Hello family, welcome back. Before we begin, I have a small but heartfelt request. Please, subscribe. Your support is what keeps these stories alive. Every time you click that button, you're helping us share voices that would otherwise be forgotten, stories that deserve to be heard. And in the comments, tell us where you're watching from, because together, we are not just telling stories, we are keeping hope alive. The apartment was quiet except for the sound of Naomi's breathing. She sat on the edge of the bed, hands folded in her lap, staring at the 2 pink lines on the pregnancy test resting on the nightstand. Her heart was beating so loud she could hear it in her ears. A steady thump, thump, thump that seemed to say, "This is real. This is real. This is real." She had taken 3 tests, all positive. The room around her was small but warm, cream-colored walls, photos in mismatched frames. A lavender candle she'd lit that morning still flickering on the dresser. This was supposed to be their safe place. The home she and Marcus had built together, where they'd whispered dreams about the future, about kids and travel and growing old on a porch somewhere. But lately, the warmth had started to fade. Marcus used to come home smiling, pulling her into his arms before his coat was even off. Now he came home late, smelling like cologne she didn't recognize. His eyes distant and his words clipped. "Long day, babe," he'd say. "I'm just tired." But tired didn't explain the new passwords on his phone. It didn't explain why he stopped holding her at night. Naomi picked up the test again, her fingers trembling slightly. She wanted to feel joy, she really did. They talked about having kids before they got married. He'd said he wanted a son to carry his name. She'd said she wanted a little girl with his smile. Now, sitting alone in the dim light, she wasn't sure what he wanted anymore. She heard the front door open. Her heart jumped. She quickly tucked the test into her pocket and stood up, smoothing her shirt, forcing her lips into a smile. "Babe?" she called softly. Marcus appeared in the doorway, loosening his tie. He looked good, he always did. Smooth brown skin, sharp jawline, hair lined up fresh from the barber. He'd just been promoted to senior advisor at the marketing firm, and the confidence showed in the way he carried himself now, head high, shoulders back, like he owned every room he walked into. "Hey," he said, barely looking at her. He pulled off his tie and tossed it on the chair. "How was work?" she asked gently. "Same. Busy." He moved past her toward the closet. No kiss, no hug. Just the faint smell of perfume that wasn't hers. Naomi's throat tightened, but she swallowed the ache. "I made dinner. Your favorite? Jerk chicken, rice and peas, plantains." "I already ate," he said flatly. "Client meeting ran late." She nodded slowly, her hands twisting together. "Oh, okay." He changed into sweatpants and a t-shirt, grabbed his phone, and sat on the edge of the bed, scrolling. Naomi stood near the dresser, watching him. She wanted to tell him. She wanted to pull the test from her pocket, place it in his hands, and see his face light up the way it used to. But something about the coldness in the room made her afraid. "Marcus," she said quietly. Can we talk?" He sighed, still looking at his phone. "About what?" Her chest tightened. "About us." He finally looked up, his expression unreadable. "What about us?" "You've been different, distant. She paused, her voice cracking slightly. I miss you. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Guilt, maybe, or regret. But then it was gone, replaced by irritation. Here we go, he muttered, standing up. I'm working my ass off to build something for us, Naomi. I'm tired when I get home. That's it. Don't make it bigger than it is. I'm not trying to. Then stop, he said sharply. Stop overthinking everything. Stop making me feel like I'm doing something wrong just because I'm not smiling 24/7. Her eyes burned, but she blinked the tears back. I just want to feel like I matter to you. He looked at her for a long moment, his jaw tight. Then he shook his head. I can't do this right now. He grabbed his keys from the dresser. Where are you going? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Out. I need air. Marcus, please. The door slammed before she could finish. Naomi stood frozen in the middle of the room, her hand pressed against her stomach, tears streaming down her face. The candle flickered. The apartment felt colder than it ever had. She pulled the pregnancy test from her pocket and stared at it again, her vision blurred. It's okay, baby, she whispered through her tears. Mommy's here, I promise. But even as she said it, her heart was breaking. The days that followed were heavy with silence. Marcus came and went like a stranger renting a room in her life. Some nights he didn't come home at all. When she asked, he said he'd crashed at his boy Devin's place after working late. Naomi wanted to believe him. She tried to believe him, but her gut told a different story. One Thursday afternoon, she finally went to the doctor. Alone. She sat in the waiting room surrounded by couples holding hands, rubbing bellies, whispering excitedly. She looked down at her own hands, empty, trembling, and felt the weight of loneliness sink deeper into her chest. When the nurse called her name, she stood slowly, her legs weak. The ultrasound room was dim and cold. The technician, a kind older woman named Mrs. Diane, smiled warmly as Naomi lay back on the table. First time? She asked gently. Naomi nodded, her throat too tight to speak. Mrs. Diane squeezed her hand. It's gonna be okay, baby. Let's see what we got. The gel was cold against her skin. The wand pressed gently against her belly. And then there it was. A heartbeat. No, 2 heartbeats. Naomi's breath caught. Mrs. Diane's eyes widened slightly, then softened into a smile. Well, look at that, she said quietly. Congratulations, Mama. You're having twins. The words didn't land at first. They hovered in the air like something too big to hold. Twins, Naomi whispered. Yes, baby. 2 strong heartbeats. Both looking good. Tears slipped down Naomi's temples, pooling in her ears. She didn't know if they were tears of joy or fear. Maybe both. She stared at the screen. 2 tiny flickers of life, side by side, growing inside her. They're beautiful, Mrs. Diane said softly. Naomi nodded, unable to speak. Her heart felt too full and too broken at the same time. When she left the clinic, the world looked different. The sun felt warmer. The sounds of the city, cars honking, people laughing, music spilling from open windows, felt distant, like she was walking through a dream. She held the ultrasound photos in her hand, staring at them as she sat on the bus. 2 babies. She imagined telling Marcus. Imagined his face softening, his arms wrapping around her, his voice saying, we're gonna be okay. But when she got home and found him on the couch, scrolling through his phone with that same blank expression, the fantasy shattered. Hey, she said carefully, setting her purse down. Hey. She sat beside him, her hands shaking slightly. I went to the doctor today. He didn't look up. Yeah? Everything good. She swallowed hard. Marcus, I'm pregnant. For a second, his thumb stopped scrolling. Then he locked his phone and set it down, his face unreadable. You sure? He asked. She nodded. I'm sure. I saw them today. I heard their heartbeats. Them? Her voice was barely a whisper. It's twins, Marcus. Silence. He didn't smile, didn't reach for her. He just sat there, staring at the floor, his jaw working like he was chewing on words he didn't want to say. Finally, he spoke. His voice was flat, cold. I can't do this. Naomi's heart stopped. What? I said I can't do this. He stood up, running his hand over his head. I'm not ready for this, Naomi. Not now. Not like this. But, her voice cracked. We talked about this. You said you wanted kids. That was before, he said sharply. Before what? He turned to face her, and for the first time in months, she saw the truth in his eyes. Before I realized I don't want this life anymore. The room tilted. Her breath came shallow and fast. You don't mean that, she whispered. I do. His voice didn't waver. I've been trying to figure out how to tell you. I didn't want to hurt you, but, he exhaled, shaking his head. I'm not happy, Naomi. I haven't been for a while. Tears blurred her vision. Is there someone else? He hesitated, just for a second. That hesitation told her everything. Oh my God, she breathed, her hand flying to her mouth. There's someone else. It's not like that. Then what is it like, Marcus? Her voice rose, shaking with rage and grief. Tell me, what is it like when you come home smelling like her? When you stop touching me? When you look at me like I'm a burden? You're not a burden, he said quietly. But I'm not in love with you anymore. The words hit like a physical blow. She staggered back, her hand instinctively moving to her stomach. So what? She whispered. You're just leaving? He looked away. I think it's best. Best for who? Her voice broke. For you? For her? For all of us, he said. You deserve someone who wants to be here, Naomi. That's not me anymore. She wanted to scream, to beg, to fight, but all she could do was stand there, trembling, her world collapsing around her. What about them? She whispered, her hands cradling her stomach. What about your babies? Marcus looked at her belly, his expression hard. I'll help you figure it out, financially, but I can't be a father right now. I'm sorry. He grabbed his jacket from the chair and walked toward the door. Marcus, please, she whispered, her voice breaking. Please don't do this. He paused at the door, his hand on the knob. For a moment, she thought he might turn around, thought he might stay, but he didn't. The door closed softly behind him, and Naomi sank to the floor, her sobs tearing through the silence. Her hands pressed protectively over the two tiny lives growing inside her, the only ones who hadn't left her yet. The days after Marcus left felt like drowning in slow motion. Naomi stayed in the apartment for as long as she could, curled up on the couch, staring at the door, waiting for him to come back and say it was all a mistake. But he never did. The calls she made went straight to voicemail. The texts went unanswered. It was like he'd erased her from his life in one clean swipe. 2 weeks later, the eviction notice came. The apartment had been in his name. He'd stopped paying rent. Naomi sat on the floor, the paper trembling in her hands, and felt the last thread of her old life snap. She had nowhere to go. Her mother had passed 3 years ago. Her father remarried and moved to Arizona. She hadn't spoken to him in over a year. Her friends had slowly faded when she got married, the way friends sometimes do when your life starts to look different from theirs. She packed what she could fit into 2 duffel bags, clothes, a photo album, the ultrasound pictures, and walked out of the apartment for the last time. The city felt enormous and empty. She spent the first night at a women's shelter on the south side, lying on a narrow cot, listening to the sounds of coughing and crying and whispered prayers. She pressed her hand to her belly and whispered, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But the babies didn't answer. They just kept growing. If you haven't subscribed yet, we'd love for you to join our community by hitting the subscribe button. Through our stories, we build hope and give a future to children and women who have been abused all over the world. Motivate us by subscribing and turning on your notification bell so you never miss a story that matters. Also, let us know in the comments. Where are you watching from, and how did this story speak to you? Months passed like shadows. Naomi's belly grew round and heavy. Her back ached. Her feet swelled. The shelter let her stay as long as she could, but space was limited, and there were always others who needed the bed more. By her 7th month, she was on the streets. She found a spot near the bus terminal, under an awning that kept the rain off. She kept her bags close, her head down, her hands always resting on her stomach. People walked past her like she was invisible. Some dropped change into the cup she'd set beside her. Most didn't. At night, she'd talk to the twins. "You're gonna be okay," she'd whisper. "Mama's gonna figure this out. I promise." She didn't know how, but she had to believe it or she'd fall apart completely. One cold evening in late November, she sat shivering under a thin blanket, watching the sun set behind the buildings. Her stomach cramped. Braxton Hicks, the clinic nurse, had said, "Practice contractions." Her body getting ready, but she wasn't ready, not even close. A sleek black car pulled up to the curb nearby. Naomi glanced at it, then looked away. Rich people didn't notice homeless women. That's just how the world worked. But then the window rolled down. A woman's voice called out, smooth and cold. "Naomi?" Naomi's heart stopped. She looked up. Sitting in the back seat, dressed in cream and gold, was Beverly, Marcus's mother. The woman who had once welcomed her with warm hugs and Sunday dinners. The woman who'd helped her pick out her wedding dress. Now she looked at Naomi like she was something dirty on the sidewalk. "I thought that was you," Beverly said, her tone laced with disgust. Naomi's throat tightened. She tried to speak, but no words came. Beverly stepped out of the car, her heels clicking sharply on the pavement. She stood a few feet away, arms crossed, looking down at Naomi with a mixture of pity and contempt. "So this is what you've been reduced to," Beverly said quietly. "Begging on the street." Naomi's hands curled into fists. "I didn't have a choice." "There's always a choice," Beverly replied coolly. "You could have handled things differently. You could have let Marcus go with grace instead of clinging to him." "I didn't cling to him," Naomi said, her voice shaking. "He left me. He abandoned his children." Beverly's eyes flicked to Naomi's belly, her expression hardening. "You should have thought about that before you got pregnant." The cruelty of it took Naomi's breath away. "I loved him," she whispered. "I gave him everything. And he gave you a life you didn't deserve," Beverly said coldly. "My son has moved on, Naomi. He's with someone better now. Someone who fits into his world." Naomi's chest ached. "Who?" Beverly smiled, a thin, satisfied smile. "Simone. You remember her, don't you?" The name hit like a slap. Simone, Marcus's co-worker. The woman Naomi had met at the company Christmas party. The one who'd smiled too brightly and stood too close. "They're engaged," Beverly continued. "The wedding's in the spring. He's happy now. Finally." Naomi's vision blurred. She wanted to scream, to cry, to disappear into the pavement. Beverly reached into her purse and pulled out a folded envelope. She dropped it onto Naomi's lap. "There's $2,000 in there," she said. "Consider it a gift. Use it to get back on your feet. But leave Marcus alone. Don't contact him. Don't show up at his office. Just disappear." Naomi stared at the envelope like it was poison. "He doesn't want you," Beverly said quietly. "He never did. You were just a phase." Then she turned and walked back to the car, her heels clicking in perfect rhythm. The car door closed. The engine purred. And just like that, Beverly was gone. Naomi sat there, trembling, the envelope still resting on her lap. Inside her, the babies kicked. She opened the envelope slowly. Inside were 20 crisp $100 bills. Her first thought was to tear them up, to throw them in the trash, to scream that she didn't need their guilt money. But then she felt another kick. She looked down at her belly, her vision swimming with tears. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I can't be proud right now. I just need you to be safe." She folded the money carefully and tucked it into her coat. That night she found a motel. It wasn't much, a sagging bed, a flickering light, the smell of cigarettes baked into the walls. But it was warm, and for the first time in weeks, she slept without shivering. The twins were born on a snowy morning in January. Naomi had gone into labor alone, catching a bus to the county hospital, gripping the seat in front of her as contractions tore through her body. The nurses were kind. They didn't ask questions. They just held her hand and told her to breathe. 14 hours later, she heard the first cry. A boy. Then, 6 minutes after, another. A second boy. They placed them on her chest, tiny and warm and perfect, their small fists curling against her skin. Naomi sobbed, deep, shaking sobs that came from a place she didn't know existed. "You're here," she whispered. "You're finally here." She named them Elijah and Isaiah. Her miracles. The years that followed were the hardest of her life. She worked 3 jobs, cleaning offices at night, waiting tables during the day, babysitting on weekends. She moved from motel to shelter to a tiny subsidized apartment in a neighborhood where gunshots sounded like fireworks. But she kept going. For them, Elijah and Isaiah grew fast. They had Marcus's eyes, sharp and dark and full of mischief. They had her smile. They were loud and wild and full of life, and every time she looked at them, she remembered why she survived. She never told them about their father. Not yet. They were too young to understand. But sometimes, late at night, after she tucked them in and sat by the window with a cup of cold tea, she'd wonder what Marcus was doing. If he ever thought about her. If he ever wondered about the boys. 5 years passed. Naomi had clawed her way into stability. She'd gotten her CNA license and was working at a nursing home. The pay wasn't great, but it was steady. She'd moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment. The boys were in kindergarten. Life wasn't perfect, but it was hers. One evening, while folding laundry in front of the TV, a news segment caught her attention. The anchor's voice was bright and professional. Local entrepreneur Marcus Williams has been named CEO of Apex Marketing Solutions, one of the fastest-growing firms in the state. The 32-year-old businessman credits his success to hard work, vision, and the support of his wife, Simone Williams. Naomi's hands froze. The screen showed Marcus standing in a crisp navy suit, smiling beside a woman in a red dress. Simone. She was gorgeous, tall, polished, glowing. They looked perfect. The camera cut to Marcus speaking at a podium. "I've been blessed beyond measure," he said smoothly. "And I'm committed to giving back to this community that raised me." Naomi's chest tightened. He looked older, more confident, successful, like the man she'd loved had been swallowed by someone shinier. She turned off the TV and sat in the silence, staring at the blank screen. The twins ran into the room, laughing, tackling each other onto the couch. "Mama, look!" Elijah shouted, holding up a drawing. "I made a rocket." She smiled, pulling him close. "It's beautiful, baby." Isaiah climbed into her lap. "Can we have pizza?" She kissed the top of his head. "Maybe this weekend." They didn't know their father was on TV. They didn't know he existed at all. And for now, she wanted to keep it that way. But deep down, Naomi knew the truth. One day, the past would find them. And when it did, everything would change. 3 more years slipped by like water through her fingers. Elijah and Isaiah were 8 now, wild, smart, and full of questions. They asked about their father sometimes, in the careful way children do when they sense a wound. "Why don't we have a dad?" Isaiah had asked one night before bed. Naomi had brushed his hair back gently, her heart aching. "You do have a dad, baby. He's not here." Did he die? Elijah asked quietly. She shook her head. No, he's alive. He just made a choice to live a different life. Isaiah frowned. Did he not want us? The question pierced her. She pulled them both close. Listen to me. What he wanted doesn't matter. What matters is that I want you. I will always want you. You are my whole world. They hugged her tight, their small bodies warm and trusting. But the question lingered in the air long after they fell asleep. One afternoon in late spring, Naomi's supervisor at the nursing home approached her in the break room. She stepped closer and placed a gentle hand on Naomi's shoulder. Baby, listen to me. Men like that, they think they've won. They think they're untouchable. But pride comes before the fall. Always. Naomi's eyes filled with tears. He doesn't even know about them, she whispered. He doesn't know they exist. Mrs. Patricia's brow furrowed. Your boys. Naomi nodded, tears spilling over. I never told him. He left before they were born. He didn't want them. Mrs. Patricia pulled her into a hug, warm, strong, the kind Naomi's own mother used to give. Then he's a fool, she said firmly. And one day that fool's gonna realize what he lost. But by then it'll be too late. Naomi pulled back, wiping her face. I just want to forget him. I want to move on. You will, Mrs. Patricia said gently. But healing doesn't mean pretending it didn't hurt. It means you survived it. And baby, you're still standing. That's power. Naomi took a shaky breath and nodded. Mrs. Patricia squeezed her hand. Get home safe, baby. Hug those boys. They're your real blessing. When Naomi walked through the door of her apartment that night, the babysitter, a teenage girl from downstairs, was asleep on the couch. The TV was still on, playing some late-night sitcom. Naomi paid her quietly and locked the door behind her. She walked into the boys' room and stood in the doorway watching them sleep. Elijah had kicked his blanket off, sprawled across the bed like a starfish. Isaiah was curled up tight, clutching his stuffed dinosaur. She knelt beside their bed and brushed Elijah's hair back gently. He stirred but didn't wake. I love you, she whispered, more than anything in this world. Isaiah's eyes fluttered open slightly. Mama! Shoo, baby. Go back to sleep. Did you have a good night? He mumbled. She smiled through her tears. I'm having a good night now. He smiled sleepily and closed his eyes again. Naomi sat there for a long time, just watching them breathe. These boys, her boys, were everything Marcus had walked away from. And they were everything she had fought to protect. The next few weeks were quiet. Naomi went back to her regular shifts at the nursing home. The gala became a painful memory she tried to bury. But the universe wasn't done with her yet. One Saturday afternoon, she took the boys to the park. They were playing on the swings, laughing and shouting, their voices bright against the spring air. Naomi sat on a bench nearby, watching them, her heart full. Then her phone rang. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Hello. Is this Naomi Harper? The voice was female, professional. Yes. Who's this? My name is Dr. Angela Morrison. I'm calling from the National Marrow Donor Program. Naomi's stomach dropped. I'm sorry, what? We have you listed in our registry. You signed up about 6 years ago during a donor drive at the community center. Naomi vaguely remembered. A nurse had convinced her to swab her cheek. She'd forgotten all about it. Okay. Ms. Harper, we found a match. A young boy, 8 years old, is in urgent need of a bone marrow transplant. His name is... Naomi's breath caught. I'm sorry. I can't disclose the patient's identity yet, but we'd like to run further tests to confirm compatibility. Would you be willing to come in? Naomi's mind raced. Yes, of course. Thank you. We'll be in touch within the week. The call ended. Naomi sat there, staring at her phone, her heart pounding. A little boy, 8 years old. the same age as her twins. She looked over at Elijah and Isaiah, spinning on the merry-go-round, their laughter ringing through the park. And for the first time in a long time, Naomi felt like maybe, just maybe, God was writing a story she didn't understand yet. 2 weeks later, Naomi sat in a sterile clinic room, waiting for the results. Dr. Morrison walked in, her expression serious but kind. "Ms. Harper, thank you for coming back." "Of course." Dr. Morrison sat down across from her. "The tests confirm it. You're a match." Naomi exhaled. "Okay, so what do I need to do?" Dr. Morrison hesitated. "There's something else you should know." Naomi's pulse quickened. "The patient, his family has requested to meet you. It's not standard protocol, but given the circumstances, we felt it was important." "Circumstances." Dr. Morrison folded her hands. "The boy's father is well known, wealthy. He's been very involved in the process. And when your name came up as a match, he asked to speak with you before moving forward." Naomi's chest tightened. "What's the father's name?" Dr. Morrison glanced at her chart. "Marcus Williams." The room spun. Naomi gripped the edge of the chair, her breath coming in short gasps. "Are you okay?" Dr. Morrison asked, concerned. Naomi couldn't speak. Marcus had a son who was dying. A son the same age as Elijah and Isaiah. Her mind raced. How? When? Then the pieces fell into place. Simone. They must have had a child right after they got married. And now that child needed her. Dr. Morrison leaned forward gently. "Ms. Harper, I know this is overwhelming, but you're under no obligation. If you're uncomfortable—" "No," Naomi said quickly, her voice shaking. "I'll do it. I'll meet him." Because deep down she knew. This wasn't just about saving a child. This was the moment the truth would finally come out. The meeting was set for the following Tuesday at the hospital. Naomi walked through the sliding glass doors, her hands trembling, her heart racing. She was led to a private conference room. Inside, Marcus sat at the table, his head in his hands. Simone sat beside him, her face pale and tear-streaked. When the door opened, Marcus looked up. His face went white. "Naomi." She didn't respond. She just stood there, staring at the man who had destroyed her. Dr. Morrison stepped forward. "Mr. Williams, this is Naomi Harper. She's the donor match for your son." Marcus stood slowly, his expression unreadable. I didn't know it was you." "Neither did I," Naomi said quietly. Simone looked between them, confusion flickering in her eyes. "You two know each other?" Marcus didn't answer. Dr. Morrison continued. "Ms. Harper has agreed to move forward with the donation. But she requested this meeting first." Naomi's voice was calm, steady. "I need to know something before I agree to anything." Marcus's jaw tightened. "What?" She met his eyes. "Do you have other children?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Marcus blinked, caught off guard. "What? No, just our son." "You sure about that?" Naomi asked softly. His face paled further. Simone frowned. "What is she talking about?" Naomi opened her purse and pulled out her phone. She scrolled to a photo, Elijah and Isaiah at the park, grinning at the camera, their faces bright and full of life. She turned the phone toward Marcus. His breath stopped. "These are your sons," Naomi said quietly. "Elijah and Isaiah. They're 8 years old. They were born 7 months after you left me." Simone gasped. Marcus stared at the photo, his hands shaking. "You have twins," Simone whispered, her voice breaking. Marcus didn't answer. He just stared at the screen. Naomi's voice didn't waver. "I never told you because you made it clear you didn't want them. But they exist. And they're healthy. And they're mine." Tears filled Marcus's eyes. "Naomi, I didn't come here for an apology," she said firmly. "I came here to save your son. Because unlike you, I don't abandon children. The room was silent. Dr. Morrison cleared her throat gently. Ms. Harper, are you still willing to proceed? Naomi looked at Marcus one last time. Then she turned to the doctor and nodded. Yes, let's save him. The transplant was scheduled for the following week. In the days leading up to it, the story broke. A journalist had somehow gotten wind of the connection between Marcus Williams, the celebrated CEO, and Naomi Harper, the woman donating Marrow to save his son, while also being the mother of his unknown twin boys. The headlines exploded. CEO's secret twins discovered after ex saves his dying son. Marcus Williams' hidden past exposed. Abandoned pregnant wife. Now she's his only hope. Charity Gala humiliation backfires. Homeless ex holds his life in her hands. The media swarmed. Marcus's reputation crumbled overnight. Sponsors pulled out. The board called emergency meetings. Simone filed for separation. His empire, built on image and ego, collapsed like a house of cards. And through it all, Naomi stayed silent. She went through with the donation. The surgery was successful. Marcus's son, a quiet boy named Caleb, slowly began to recover. Naomi met him once briefly in the hospital. He looked up at her with wide, grateful eyes and whispered, "Thank you." She smiled. "You're welcome, baby." 3 months later, Marcus showed up at her apartment. He stood in the hallway, looking older, thinner, broken. "Naomi," he said quietly, "can we talk?" She stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "What do you want, Marcus?" His voice cracked. "I want to meet them, Elijah and Isaiah. I want to know my sons." Naomi studied him for a long moment. Then she shook her head. "They don't need you," she said softly. "They never did." "Please," he whispered, tears in his eyes. "I know I messed up. I know I don't deserve it. But please, let me try." Naomi's voice was calm, firm. "You don't get to walk back in just because it's convenient now. You don't get to be their hero after you were their ghost." She stepped back and began to close the door. "Naomi, wait." "Goodbye, Marcus." The door clicked shut, and for the first time in 8 years, Naomi felt free. That evening, she sat with Elijah and Isaiah on the couch, reading them a bedtime story. "Mama," Elijah asked, "why are people talking about us on the news?" She closed the book and pulled them close. "Because sometimes," she said gently, "the truth comes out, and when it does, it changes everything." "Is that bad?" Isaiah asked. She kissed the top of his head. "No, baby, it's not bad. It just means people finally see what I've always known." "What's that?" She smiled. "That you two are the best thing that ever happened to me." They hugged her tight, and she held them like they were the only thing in the world that mattered. Because they were. Months turned into years. Marcus tried several more times to reach out. Naomi never responded. Eventually, he stopped trying. Elijah and Isaiah grew into strong, kind, brilliant young men. They never asked about their father again. They had everything they needed. And Naomi? She went back to school, became a nurse, and eventually opened a support center for single mothers, a place where women could find help, hope, and a second chance. She called it the Harper House. On the wall near the entrance, she hung a framed quote. "Sometimes the people who break you are the ones who set you free." And every woman who walked through those doors saw it and believed it, because Naomi Harper had lived it. Sometimes the hardest endings bring the best beginnings. Sometimes the people who abandon you give you the space to become who you were always meant to be. And sometimes the truth doesn't whisper. Sometimes it walks into a ballroom, stands in front of the man who destroyed you, and quietly, calmly ruins him. Not with revenge, but with grace. Thank you for watching. If the story touched you, please subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment below and let us know. Where are you watching from? We're building hope together, one story at a time.